Good afternoon. I'd like to call the meeting of the Board of Public Utilities for the City of Santa Rosa to order. May we have a roll call, please?
Board Member Wright?
Here.
Board Member Mullen?
Here.
Board Member DeWitt?
Here.
Board Member Bartholow? Here. Board Member Badenfort?
Here.
Vice Chair Arnone?
Here.
And Chair Galvin.
Here.
Let the record reflect that all board members are present.
Thank you. First item of business is the oath of office for returning member Mr. Wright. So if you would like to move forward, they'll raise your right hand.
I, Glenn Wright,
I, Glenn Wright,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I do this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
discharge the duties of which I am about to enter. Thank you.
Welcome back, Board Member Wright. If you are so inclined, you're more than happy to make any statement.
No statement, just thank you very much.
Very good, thank you. Welcome back. We'll now take public comment on item number three. If you wish to make a comment, please move to the podium. Seeing no one, that'll take care of that. Our next item is the election of the vice chair. At this time, I will call for any motions to be made to appoint the vice chair.
I'll move Bill Arnone.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second for Vice Chair Arnone to be reappointed. Do we have any other nominations? All right, then at this point, we'll take public comments on item number 4. Seeing none, may we have a roll call, please?
Board Member Wright?
Aye.
Board Member Mullen?
Aye.
Board Member DeWitt?
Yes.
Board Member Bartholow?
Aye.
Board Member Badenfort?
Aye.
Vice Chair Arnone?
With gratitude, aye.
And Chair Galvin.
Aye.
All right, let the record reflect that Vice Chair Arnone has been elected as the vice chair.
Congratulations, Bill. All right, we will now move to item 5. Any statements of abstention by board members? Seeing none, we have no study session today. Item number 7.1 is approval of the minutes from February 20th. We'll take public comment on those minutes. Seeing no one rise, the minutes will be entered. We'll now move to our staff briefing. Director Burke.
Thank you, Chair Galvin and members of the board. Our staff briefing is our water and recycled water supply update, and Peter Martin, our Deputy Director Water Resources, and Mike Prinz, our Deputy Director Regional Water Reuse Operations, will be making the presentation.
All right. Good afternoon, Chair Galvin, members of the board. Here with a brief water recycled water supply update. No surprise to this board, the Russian River water supplies are looking very good for the beginning of this year. Just a note that Sonoma Water did file a temporary emergency change petition, and that order was granted by the State Water Board, allowing them relief under their water rights for the cumulative approach to their in-stream flows under their water rights. That order will expire in 180 days, so in May. So just to note that some water will be filing another petition in April. One thing to note is that with the cumulative inflow into Lake Pillsbury, they've already achieved at this point enough inflow to kick the water year into normal conditions for the remainder of the year. So it is just showing that there is a disconnect there between what goes on the Eel River and the Russian River. So should, unfortunately, if no more rain came today, they would be stuck with a situation where they would not necessarily have their in-stream flows matching the conditions in the Russian River. So one thing to note too is that they will be revisiting the conditions under this order every 2 weeks beginning in March. So as of March 1st right now, normal water supply conditions are prevailing. In terms of storage in Lake Pillsbury, storage is currently at about 57,000 acre feet, according to that black line there, which is 112% of their operating conditions for that particular reservoir. Again, just want to note that PG&E is no longer allowed to operate the slide gates due to seismic conditions of the reservoir, Pillsbury Reservoir and Scott Dam. So it's will remain low, below about 20,000 acre feet below what they could store. As you can see, that dotted line going up, they would typically be able to start storing more water in the coming weeks. In terms of storage in Lake Mendocino, and Lake Sonoma, the operations of both reservoirs remain under the control of the U.S. Army Corps, since they are now in the flood pool. As of today, the storage is about 87,000 acre feet. That means that they have the benefit of the 11,000 acre feet in forecast informed reservoir operations above the normal control for that reservoir. And so again, they continue to be able to maintain additional storage at this time of year, and that will continue to grow over the next few months into the summer, if there's more water that's available. And in terms of Lake Sonoma storage, now reaching the point where they have the opportunity to store over 19,000 acre feet of storage above and beyond normal operating conditions, and their forecast informed reservoir operations for that reservoir too. So again, just a lot of carryover storage in Lake Sonoma for us folks who benefit from that reservoir. And just want to note that at this point, Lake Sonoma would have 3 to 4 years of storage for the region in storage. So again, going into this next summer with plentiful water supplies. In terms of outreach, I just wanted to highlight a couple items this month. The St. Patrick's Day 5K is occurring on March 16th in Courthouse Square. That is an event that benefits the Parks and Recs Scholarship Fund, but it is also sponsored by Santa Rosa Water. It also coincides with the beginning of National Fix a Leak Week. As you know, we've been focused, working with the Sonoma Marin Saving Water Partnership on the diatab challenge. We're asking folks to take a diatab and check their toilets for leaks, as well as fix and find leaks inside during this time. And also I wanted to highlight an effort that's been going on in partnership with our own outreach folks and the Sonoma Marin Saving Water Partnership. This past few months, and going forward, we'll be focusing on the climate ready landscapes There are a variety of tools available to folks in the region, including the Water Smart Plant Picker, irrigation scheduling tool. You can also receive a DIY toolkit for water use efficiency, pick it up at the library. There's the Water Smart Garden Maintenance Manual, and of course you can see rebates for all the utilities that are part of the partnership. If you go to savingwaterpartnership.org, you can learn more. So that will conclude my portion of the presentation, and I'll hand it over to Deputy Director Prinz.
Thanks, Peter. Good afternoon, Chair Galvin, members of the board. Wanted to start off today by showing you a picture of the geysers Delta Pond connection in a testing mode. That actually is a picture, it's actually a screenshot from a video that was taken not that long ago, just a couple of weeks ago, I think, with the geysers pipeline tied into the Delta Pond, which is the primary point where we discharge recycled water when the need arises. It may not look like it in that photograph, but that's actually 17 million gallons per day of flow going into Delta Pond. Quite frankly, it's an awesome project that leverages stranded pump capacity at the Llano Pump Station just across from the Laguna Treatment Plant. And I want to emphasize that we were able to do this and will be able to do this operation while sustaining flow to Calpine. So we're utilizing the geysers pipeline in a new way. And I think it provides a level of redundancy that could be very beneficial in the future if we needed to do any work on the Laguna effluent disposal system pipeline that feeds the reclamation system. And prior to having this connection was the exclusive pipeline to Delta Pond. So we now have a redundant way to get water up to Delta Pond, which is about 6 miles north of the treatment plant. Moving on, you've seen versions of this chart in the past several times. The black trend shows the trend for average monthly flow into the plant, actually effluent from the plant. The red trend is last year, and the purple is the average for a range of years. You can see it's been a pretty wet year so far just because the black trend is above the red trend, and actually that's contributed to some additional information I'll present later about discharge that has occurred. But yeah, so far it's been a wet year. This is the recycled water storage trend, which you've seen in the past also. The bold red line is the trend for the current water year, and you can see as compared to the black trend, we're right about where we were last year at this time. I want to draw your attention in the red trend to some abrupt lowering of the trend in late December and then 2 times in February, which constitute discharge events where storage levels are lowered through controlled discharge events, which I'm going to highlight in a little bit. But we do that when needed. You can see the first event in December was done to bring our storage levels back down because they were exceeding historical maximums. And we are fortunate to have the ability to do that to manage the storage level in addition to deliveries to Calpine during the winter months. This is a chart depicting the trend for discharge historically back to 2010. You can see we have many years where we don't discharge any water at all, which is a great attribute of Santa Rosa's recycled water system, and it's largely attributable to operation of the geysers pipeline. That, however, does not eliminate the need to discharge from the system. As you can see, we have discharged in various years, and most recently, we're discharging for the 3rd year in a row, which is basically attributable to just having high flows due to precipitation, wet winters. So far in water year 24-25, we have discharged just over 800 million gallons. This is just a summary to date. The total discharge volume is 879 million gallons, again, over 3 discharge events, the first of which was on December 25th and went on for until December 31st, and then 2 in February. That does equal a discharge of almost 5,000 pounds of phosphorus, which is deducted from our balance of phosphorus credits that leaves a balance of just under 12,400 credits remaining. With that, Peter and I would be happy to entertain any questions that you may have.
Thank you, gentlemen. I'll open it up for any board member questions or comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A follow-up to the water reclamation presentation. We're all familiar with the relationship we have with Sonoma Water on the freshwater side. It's been a decades-long partnership. We're probably the largest user under the contract with Sonoma Water. On the water reclamation side, we have, the city has a terrific system, an award-winning system with a lot of varied uses and reuses and some really cutting-edge stuff. Is there any discussion or either at the staff level or otherwise about regionalization? Because some of the other smaller cities around us are doing the same thing, just a smaller scale, and some of the capital improvements are extremely expensive to both build and operate. So is there an effort to look at perhaps down the road sometime regionalization where we could share facilities, move water into certain parts of the county that perhaps need it more than others at certain times of the year?
Right now, we have a relationship with Sonoma Water, and I think it's effectively with Windsor now, where they can transfer water into the north limit of the recycled water distribution zone, I guess you could say, for a reclamation system, and vice versa when storage and demand conditions warrant that. There really aren't regional plans or conversations in effect that I'm aware of where we would use facilities other than that.
So my question is more related to, is there any discussion about perhaps finding ways to make it work regionally?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll follow up on that because it sounds like a reasonable proposal. Why isn't any follow-up occurring?
Through the chair, I'm happy to talk a little bit. We have had some discussions with Sonoma Water about looking at the potential and possibilities for if there might be abilities to look at the West County facilities and what that might look like going forward. I think we've also are participating in a regional project, the R3C, which I'm never going to say quite correctly, looking at potential for us to look at regional opportunities for maybe treating biosolids to higher levels. So I think we're very open to all of those conversations. I think we've looked at some opportunities in the past and will continue to be open going forward. I think also in particular, the board may remember that we have a short-term or what we're calling a medium-term solution in place for our biosolids, trucking them down to Listec. And at some point, we will be refocusing on trying to see if we can develop a regional solution potentially at our treatment plant. So I think we're very open. We continue to have those conversations, and we participate in various groupings that way.
Thank you. Any other board member questions or comments? All right, we'll open it up now for public comment on item number 8.1. See no one rise. That'll take care of item 8.1. Thank you, gentlemen. We have 2 items on the consent calendar. Entertain a motion for the consent calendar.
I'll move adoption of the consent calendar.
Second.
Motion by Vice Chair Arnone, seconded by Board Member Wright. We'll now open it up for public comment on item 9.1 and 9.2. If you wish to make a comment, please move to the podium. Seeing none, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Board Member Wright?
Aye.
Board Member Mullen?
Aye.
Board Member DeWitt?
Aye.
Board Member Bartholow?
Aye.
Board Member Badenfort?
Aye.
Vice Chair Arnone?
Aye.
And Chair Galvin?
Aye.
Okay, and let the record reflect that the consent calendar passes unanimously.
Thank you. We'll now move to the report items. Item 10.1, Director Burke.
Thank you, Chair Galvin and members of the board. Item 10.1 is a project work order approval, engineering design services for the Fulton Road Sewer Lift Station SLS 11 relocation, contract number C00227. And Rochella Maeda, our associate civil engineer with the Capital Projects team, will be presenting.
Good afternoon, Chair Galvin and members of the board. As Director Burke mentioned, my name is Rochella Maeda, and I'm here today to discuss the project work order for the engineering design services for the Fulton Road Sewer Lift Station SLS relocation project. Today, I'm going to start off with some project background, and then I will discuss the process for procuring a design consultant. We reached out to potential consultants who did not propose on this job, so I will provide a summary of those conversations. I will give a brief overview of these firms' sub-consultants, also their consultant fee, and then verification of that consultant fee. I'll give an overview of the anticipated schedule and then end with a recommendation. Taking a look at the project location, the project extents are shown in green on Fulton Road and West College Avenue. The existing lift station that's being relocated as part of this project is located at the intersection of those two streets. And this is the largest lift station in the city, so is considered a critical piece of infrastructure. And it needs to be replaced because it was constructed in 1965, so it's considered to be at the end of its useful life. In addition, access to the facility for larger equipment is difficult because of the small parcel size. Portions of the facility cannot be properly cleaned, and current maintenance protocols pose a safety concern for operations staff. Here we're looking at that same area, but you can now see the sewer system by the colored lines. Under existing conditions, sewer gravity flows north on Fulton Road to the existing lift station, which is indicated by the pink square. We also have flows coming in from the north and east. From the lift station, flows are pumped east along West College and then head south past the storage facility behind Stony Point Road, after which flow is directed down West 3rd and eventually Fulton to head to the Laguna treatment plant. The new lift station will be constructed on a city-owned parcel across the street from the existing lift station. Also, as part of the project, a new force main, approximately 3,200 feet long, will be installed on Fulton Road. And in this force main, flow will be going from north to south. And this will introduce pumping efficiencies since the sewer flow will take a much more direct route to the treatment plant. The existing gravity main on Fulton Road will still carry flows to the north to the lift station. The existing lift station will be demolished, and then new valves will be installed at the intersection of West College and Fulton, and this would allow operations staff to still utilize the existing force main on West College Avenue. Also, as part of this project, that existing force main will be rehabilitated, and this pipe would be used during high flow events when city staff still need the option to store water in that facility behind Stony Point Road, or in the event that maintenance needs to be done on the new force main. Here we're looking at a conceptual level design of the sewer lift station, just focusing on the key components. And because this is preliminary, the final design may differ a little bit from what you're looking at here. Towards the right of your screen, that black line indicates sewer flow coming into the lift station. It would then go through a grinder vault, which would break down larger material that often clogs the pumps. To the left of that, you can see an overflow wet well. That blue circle indicates the wet well where flow is collected before being pumped out of the lift station. The 3 pumps and a flow meter are located to the left of that. There will likely be odor control facilities installed. And then towards the top of your screen are the backup generator and the electrical room. And then something that's not shown here is that the wet well and then also the area that houses the 3 pumps will be located underground. At the existing lift station, it's approximately 2 stories underground, so the same design will likely be employed here. Moving on to procuring a consultant, the request for proposals was issued in accordance with Council Policy 600-01 in December of last year. We would typically release an RFP like this for 2 to 3 weeks, but we extended it due to the holiday season. 81 consulting firms were notified of the RFP, but we only received 1 proposal, and that was from Brelgy and Race Consulting Engineers. And based on their experience with the design and construction of similar projects, city staff deemed Brelgy and Race Consulting Engineers as qualified to complete the project. Since we only received 1 proposal, we did reach out to other consultants after the RFP period had ended. So we reached out to consultants that we would have considered potential bidders for this type of work. I do want to note that we were only able to get a hold of 4 of the consultants, where 12 of them had clicked on and looked at the RFP that was posted online. 1 firm mentioned that their engineering division did not receive the RFP from their marketing division. 2 stated that they were busy and did not have enough time to prepare a proposal, and 1 mentioned that it was a business decision not to provide a proposal. On Brelgy and Race's team are the sub-consultants shown here, and typically for a water and sewer project, we would have a few sub-consultants. So this list speaks to the size and the complexity of the project. The first 2 sub-consultants will be doing subsurface work, so that will be geotechnical studies and then doing underground utility locating. These 4 firms will be on the design team, and these last 4 will be working on tasks related to environmental and cultural resources. Taking a look at the consultant's fee, project management throughout the duration of the project will cost approximately $51,000. The next task includes site investigations and records researches, data collection, and then also doing that geotechnical study, and this will cost approximately $152,000. Project development has allocated in it approximately $128,000, and that would include all the hydraulic calculations, and then also putting this project into the city's citywide hydraulic model to assess its system-wide impacts. This task also includes preliminary design. $75,000 is allocated for locating existing utilities underground, which will be particularly important where we have that new force main going in. Approximately $88,000 will be for doing an addendum to the previously adopted initial study mitigated negative declaration to maintain compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act. We also anticipate needing permits through the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the Army Corps, and the Regional Water Quality Control Board. There will be a few stormwater requirements that need to be incorporated into the design and construction, and that will cost approximately $16,000. The design itself is expected to cost almost $480,000, which is about 35% of the total consultant fee. $210,000 is allocated for construction assistance, and with a 10% contingency of approximately $125,000, we have a total consultant fee of approximately $1.3 million. Here I wanted to touch on how we assessed the consultant fees since we only received 1 proposal. The planning level estimate for construction is approximately $26 million, and this estimate comes from a technical memorandum that was previously done for the project, and then also comparison of recent projects of similar size and scale. To estimate the engineering cost for a project, it is often assumed to use about 10 to 15% of the total construction cost. For this project, if you estimate 12% of construction, that would be an engineering fee of approximately $3.1 million. And when we initiated this project, we compared that $3 million to recent project and determined that closer to around 5% was more appropriate for a project of this scale. We then added costs for environmental tasks and estimated that the consultant fee should be approximately around $1.4 million. So the consultant fee shown on the previous slide of $1.3 million is therefore less than what would be estimated using industry standards and is consistent with our original cost estimate. Taking a look at the project schedule, the project began late last year. If the board approves this project work order, then the permitting and compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act and design can begin immediately. Something that I would like to point out is that permitting plays a significant role in this project schedule, and that is because one of the permits requires a minimum of 2 years of rare plant surveys. So with that, we are targeting the summer of 2027 to begin construction, which we anticipate to take 1.5 to 2 years. It is recommended by Santa Rosa Water in the Transportation and Public Works Department that the Board of Public Utilities, by motion, approve project work order number A01035-2016-37 under the Master Professional Services Agreement with Belgian Race Consulting Engineers of Santa Rosa, California, to provide professional engineering services for the Fulton Road Sewer Lift Station SLS relocation, contract number C00227, in the amount not to exceed $1,322,000. Thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for the presentation. I'll open it up for any board member questions or comments. Board Member Wright.
Thank you for the presentation. It was very good. Yeah, this project has been around quite a while, at least 20 or more years, I think. And I think this is probably, of all the different solutions I've seen for this over the time, this is probably the most simplified one. So that is good. I'm perfectly happy with Belgian Races as an engineer, and I think they've got a great bench behind them doing their subcontracting. But my general question is this a trend that we're seeing now, that we're just, not only are we not getting engineering contractors to bid on our jobs, we're not getting consultants to propose, or what is your thinking on that?
Thank you for your question. As far as recent projects go, I don't believe that this was the only project, or I do think that this was the only project recently that only received one proposal as far as design work goes. If you want, that's something I can look into and provide you with more numbers if you'd like.
Yeah, I don't need any more than that. I just was curious if we're just having difficulty with that, or is everybody so busy, or is it us, or what's going on? Who knows? And then the other thing that got me, and maybe I misunderstood you, but did you say the existing station would be utilized as a wet well?
Sorry, no, I did not. So the existing lift station would be demolished as part of this project.
It'd be demolished and surplused?
Yes.
Or whatever. Okay. All right. I'm sorry.
No,
I misunderstood. I couldn't believe that.
I could have misspoke.
All right. Thank you.
Other board member questions or comments? Board Member DeWitt.
Based on what Mr. Wright just said, the demolishing of the site and then surplus, so that land right there at the end of West College on Fulton is rather attractive. The city will then be selling it. Is that the case?
I don't know that there's a plan yet for that, what will be happening with that land, but just as part of this project, the existing facility will be demolished, and then I think a decision would be made after that.
Any other board member questions or comments? All right, we'll open it up at this time for a motion.
Okay, I'll move that the Board of Public Utilities by motion approve project order number A0101335-2016-36 under the Master Professional Service Agreement with Relgy and Race Consulting Engineers of Santa Rosa, California, to provide professional engineering design services for the Fulton Road Sewer Lift Station SLS-11 relocation, contract number C00227, in the amount not to exceed $1,322,000.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Board Member Wright, seconded by Vice Chair Arnone. This time we'll open it up for public comment on item 10.1. If you wish to make a comment, please move to the podium. See no one rise. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Board Member Wright?
Aye.
Board Member Mullen?
Aye.
Board Member DeWitt?
Aye.
Board Member Bartholow?
Aye.
Board Member Badenfort?
Aye.
Vice Chair Arnone?
Aye.
And Chair Galvin?
Aye.
And that motion passes unanimously.
Thank you again for the presentation. We'll now move to item 10.2. Director Burke.
Thank you, Chair Galvin and members of the board. Item 10.2 is a bid rejection. Laguna Treatment Plant Aeration Basin Inspection, contract number C02404. And Tatiana Makovitz, our water reuse engineer, will be making the presentation.
Good afternoon, Chairman Galvin and members of the board. My name is Tanya Mokwitz. I'm water use engineer at Laguna Treatment Plant. Testing, right? The item I'm presenting in front of you today is Laguna Treatment Plant aeration.
I think you might have your mic off.
In today's presentation, I will go over the project background, dive into the project components. I'll talk about bid opening, and then about post-bid opening inquiries. I'll discuss the next steps, and finally, I'll provide recommendation. So why are we here today? The purpose of this project is to inspect and perform condition assessment of Laguna Treatment Plant for aeration basins, settled sewage channels, mixed liquor channels, and low-pressure air system. The low-pressure air system supplies air to the aeration basins through diffusers installed on the floor of the tanks. In addition, the low-pressure air system supplies air to the settled sewage channels and mixed liquor channels to mix and reduce settling of solids in the channels. The city staff have identified leaking piping and plug diffusers in the low-pressure air system, which impacts biological treatment and energy demand. The settled sewage channels and mixed liquor channels were constructed in late 70s, and since then, since they have to be in service without disruption, we do not know the condition of the channel below the water line. Also, only 2 out of 4 aeration basins can be out of service, and only during dry weather season, which typically mid-April through mid-October. So now we're going to discuss our project components and approach. As I mentioned in the previous slide, since the channels have to be in service at all times, a robust bypass pumping system is necessary in order to dewater, clean, and inspect the channels and the basins. Our plan is to dewater 2 aeration basins at a time and perform condition assessment of the diffusers and basins appurtenances. The bypass pumping operations for settled sewage channels and mixed liquor channels will be performed in phases. Once we clean and inspect the channels and low-pressure air piping, we will be able to recommend improvements to the facilities. So now moving on to the bid opening. We advertised the project in October 2024 of 2024. We received 2 bids on November 14. The engineer's estimate was $1.7 million. The 2 bids we received were approximately $3.9 million, which is 128% over the engineer's estimate. And approximately a second is $7 million, which is 311% over the engineer's estimate. So because the bid amounts were significantly over the engineer's estimate, we decided to conduct informal interviews with prime bidders. The 2 prime bidders explained their bid costs were based on high cost of materials due to current market rates, high cost due to project labor agreement requirements, and high cost to dewater, clean, and enter the structures. Then we reached out to 7 prospective potential prime bidders who did not bid on the project but were on a planned bid list to understand why they decided not to bid on the project. So the potential prime bidders interviewed cited that the primary reasons for not bidding were insufficient time to prepare a bid, backlog of current and upcoming work, project labor agreement requirement, uncertainty on the quantity and composition of the soils, and concern with the price of the material. So ultimately, design modification can be made to reduce the scope of the project without significantly impacting project objectives. So if we reject the bids, we will work with the design engineer to revise the scope of work in order to reduce the project cost. Then we will resolicit bids in 2025 with extended bid time to potentially attract more bidders. And finally, we will perform the aeration basin settle sewage channel inspection in dry season of 2026. And with that, it is recommended by Santa Rosa Water that the board by motion reject all bids received for contract number C02404 Laguna Treatment Plant Aeration Basins Inspection Project. And thank you for your time. I would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Board member questions or comments? Vice Chair Arnone?
Thank you for the presentation. I have some questions about what you learned in the post-bidding experience from talking to potential bidders and actual bidders. And I'm trying to get a sense for what percentage of this project was related to labor and would have been impacted by the PLA. Do they break it down that way, labor versus materials or those kinds of things? So is there any way to figure out what percentage of the overall cost is allocated to labor?
Unfortunately, it is not known at this time. If we had opportunity to had alternatives like bid with PLA versus without PLA, that would show us, but we don't know at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Other board member questions or comments? Board member Wright?
Yeah, that's also a concern of mine. But also, when we reject bids, which we're here to discuss today, and then we redesign or do something, what are we going to do? I mean, obviously, there's certain components of the project that can't change, and it seems like the issues are, I guess we'll give them a lot more detail, or maybe even find a home for the spoils, if that's a problem. The bypass pumping, I mean, oftentimes it's the pumper that designs that, but maybe we have to give them a system. I don't know, but I mean, what are we going to do to make the project more attractive to bidders?
We are figuring out what to do with the spoils, and that will reduce the cost, so to reduce the hauling out. But that's everything we can do this time to reduce the scope. We will look at other options and we will work with the designer. But bypass pumping, there is nothing we can do about it. We have to pump the sewer around.
Thank you.
Board Member Mullen?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. So if I understand, this project is basically going to slide a year if we approve the rejection of bids now.
That is
And
correct.
Would then come forward in the start of the dry season in 26.
That is correct. We will try to bid it in 2025 to extend the bids, and so in April, so we could start bypass pumping once the dry season starts. But they can mobilize and set up the bypass pumping much earlier than that.
So by sliding the project a year, operationally, does that put us under the gun in any way operationally by delaying the project like this?
Not necessarily. It's just inefficient because air piping is leaking, so it's just not very efficient system.
Okay, thank you.
Other board member questions or comments? Not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move rejection of bids on contract C02404, the Laguna Treatment Plant Aeration Basins Inspection, and reject the bids.
I'll second.
Motion by Board Member Mullen, seconded by Board Member DeWitt. We'll now open it up for public comment on item 10.2. If you wish to make a comment, please move to the podium. Seeing no one, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Board Member Wright?
Aye.
Board Member Mullen?
Aye.
Board Member DeWitt?
Aye. Excuse me, got a cold.
Board Member Bartholow?
Aye.
Board Member Badenfort?
Aye.
Vice Chair Arnone?
Aye.
And Chair Galvin?
Aye.
And that motion passes unanimously.
Thank you again for the presentation. Hope we get better bidders next time. Thank you. We'll move now to item 10.3. Director Burke.
Thank you, Chair Galvin and members of the board. Item 10.3 is our Sonoma Water 2025-26 water transmission budget and rate increase. And making the presentation, we will have Nick Harvey, our Deputy Director of Water Administration, Jake Spalding, and Lynn Roselli from Sonoma Water.
Hi, and good afternoon, Chair Galvin and members of the board. I'm Nick Harvey, Deputy Director of Administration with Santa Rosa Water. And I'm joined today by both Jake Spalding and Lynn Roselli of Sonoma Water, who will present the proposed water transmission budget for the fiscal year 2025-26. Before they begin, I wanted to quickly review the annual process for approving the proposed budget and rates and explain where we currently stand in the process. So after developing the budget and proposed rates, they're then brought before and discussed by the Finance Subcommittee of the Technical Advisory Committee, or TAC, in conjunction with staff from Sonoma Water. The process of discussing the water transmission budget and proposed rate increase with the TAC's Finance Subcommittee was concluded on February 25th, where the subcommittee voted unanimously to recommend the proposed budget to the full TAC, which also voted in favor of the rate proposal at its meeting on March 3rd. From here, each contracting agency will work with their representative on the Water Advisory Committee, or the WAC, to coordinate how their agency representative will vote for the purposes of the WAC's recommendation to the Sonoma Water Board of Directors, which is scheduled to take place at its meeting on April 22nd. This afternoon, at the conclusion of the Sonoma Water presentation, we request that the board make a recommendation to City Council regarding how it should direct its WAC representative, Councilmember Natalie Rogers, to vote at that meeting. As a reminder, it's ultimately up to the discretion of the Sonoma Water Board of Directors to make the decision on how they'll proceed, including setting the rate and the rate increases that will ultimately be implemented. All votes leading up to that point in the process are simply recommendations. Santa Rosa Water's current rate structure was developed assuming maximum wholesale water rate increases of 11%. After factoring in an anticipated 1.1% increase in water deliveries due to growth, as well as Sonoma Water's proposed 8.6% increase to wholesale water on the Santa Rosa Aqueduct, we estimate our fiscal year 2025-26 water purchase to be $21.63 million. This figure exceeds our fiscal year 2024-25 water purchase budget by $1.94 million. Santa Rosa Water's current rate structure includes provision for a water purchase budget up to $21.7 million, and as such, we don't anticipate the need to utilize any additional fund balance to cover the water purchase budget for the next fiscal year. And with that, I will hand it over to Sonoma Water.
Thanks, Nick. My name's Jake Spalding. I'm the finance manager with Sonoma Water. I'm joined here with Lynn Roselli, our financial services division manager, and we're going to walk you through a quick, brief overview of our fiscal year 25-26 water transmission system budget and rates. And then at the end of the presentation, we're happy to answer any questions that you may have. So each year we develop an annual budget that meets the water transmission system's operations, maintenance, capital, as well as regulatory demands. Similar to your water system, our water system is aging, and there's a heightened need for infrastructure repairs and upgrades so that we can continue to operate and maintain it 24/7 for the benefit of all the people in Sonoma and Marin County that benefit from it. So real quick, our water transmission system has three main aqueducts. The Santa Rosa Aqueduct in purple, which this area is served by, the Petaluma Aqueduct in blue, and the Sonoma Aqueduct in green. And per the terms of the restructured agreement for water supply, each one of the contractors pays a rate associated with that aqueduct. So not everyone pays the exact same amount. And Nick, went over most of the points I wanted to make on this slide, but we are proud of the transparent and collaborative process that we take annually when we're doing our budgeting. As Nick mentioned, we start in mid-January, taking a draft budget to the TAC ad hoc budget subcommittee, and then we work collaboratively with all the water contractors until we finally bring it to our board in mid-April. Did want to say thank you to Jennifer and Nick and Peter as well for their participation in that committee this year, and we were very happy that the TAC unanimously voted to advance the rates as proposed. So the water transmission system, as I mentioned earlier, not everyone pays the same rate. It's actually not one fund, it's multiple funds, the types of which are seen on this slide. Each one of these funds has its own budget and rate set to it, and then those are combined and the water contractors pay based on that combined rate depending on which aqueduct they're served from. So we talked about this last year, Sonoma Water, we are facing many challenges. We have one unique one, which is that we have a fully volumetric rate. And that means that, when we have low deliveries, as we have the past several years, it puts additional rate pressure on the rate increase. We also have challenges that we're all experiencing in this industry, and that, really is that we have these vital assets. They're critical to public safety, public health. They've got to operate 24/7, and yet they were put in quite a long time ago. They're aging, and we're starting to see those repair costs go up, as I mentioned. So most of our facilities are now 45 to 65 years old. About 40% have only 10 to 20% of their useful life remaining, and they have a high consequence of failure because we serve 600,000 residents. That being said, we are taking steps to try and address these situations. Sonoma Water is currently in the process of developing an asset management program, and we've done preliminary condition assessments of our distribution and transmission infrastructure. The results of those do show that a large portion of them are in less than acceptable condition. So in combination with that, we're also working on a 20-year comprehensive water master plan, and that plan is going to take the data from these condition assessments and the asset management program, as well as data from studies we've done on things like resiliency and hazard mitigation, and really help us plan out the next 20 years, both in terms of what projects need to be done, what are they going to cost, and how can we sequence those best. And then lastly, our infrastructure is vulnerable to natural hazards, as is yours. fire, flood, and earthquakes are the primary ones that affect us. Earthquake is our biggest vulnerability, and we are taking steps to advance projects in this budget that address all of these concerns. Sonoma Water, we are dedicated to serving our community, securing our future through both responsible resource management as well as environmental stewardship. We continue to innovate on the technical side with things like FIRO, and we invest in critical infrastructure as well as have effective fiscal management. So on this slide, we've highlighted a couple of the collaborative efforts that we have with all the water contractors and other partners. I'm not going to go through all of them, but common themes here are things like water resiliency, hazard mitigation, as I mentioned before, water education and water conservation, as well as habitat enhancement related to Dry Creek. If you want more information on these, we did include them in the budget packet that we submitted, and we have much more information on our website as well. So what's in the fiscal year 25-26 budget on the capital side? You can see several of the projects that we're proposing here. I would note, we do seek offsetting revenue as much as we can. We have been able to secure about $12.6 million in FEMA funding for hazard mitigation projects in the last couple of years. And we're going to continue to seek additional funding for projects such as these as we move forward. The capital program also includes resiliency projects. You can see there's quite a few of them listed here for this year's budget. I know Ken Gilfie, our chief engineer, has been making his rounds and presenting to various contractors, so I think you may have seen a presentation about our capital program, but just want to point out, it does include things that are some large multi-year projects, such as the water treatment system modernization project that's going to be coming up in the near future. So the total capital program in this budget is about $18.3 million. On the O&M side, I'm not going to go through all these projects either, but in addition to routine maintenance that we're always performing, we have budgeted for several important projects. Some of the ones that you'll see up here are things like the Aqueduct Cathodic Protection Program, which helps prevent corrosion in our system. Our 10-year, $88 million tank recoating program, which is well underway with several tanks actually now either in the process or completed. And some more in the budget, obviously. And then also our emergency inventory procurement program, so that we have the pipe and other supplies on hand if we do have a disaster, so we can respond in a timely manner. On the subfund side, we have completed 5 miles of the Dry Creek Habitat Enhancement Project to date. We do get significant cost savings on that because the U.S. Army Corps picks up 65% of the cost share. We also continue to implement in coordination with the Sonoma Marin Saving Water Partnership, a very robust water conservation and education program. It continues to win awards every year, and that has really helped us attract outside funding to help offset the local costs. So when you add up all these different amounts, we get a total proposed budget of about $82 million. This is being offset by about $21 million in grants, use of fund balance, and bond proceeds. Of note, this is $7.6 million more than the previous fiscal year's budget, and that's really due to the needs of the systems that I've talked about. Do also want to point out that the capital program is fully funded by grants, loans, bond proceeds, and use of fund balance. However, there is the need to do an additional round of bond funding this year. So we will be seeking about $33 million in bonding, and that's going to fund the next 3 years of our capital program. And you can see the effect of that on the debt service line there. Real quick, just to show you kind of where our costs go, operations and maintenance is obviously our biggest cost category. It's about 56% of our budget this year. And capital projects are about 22%, followed on by the other debt funds, such as debt service and the sub-funds. Real quick, just to give you a simplified example of how our rates are calculated. They're done in accordance with the restructured agreement for water supply. And what that states is basically we take the cost of operations and maintenance of the system, and we divide that by the amount of water sold. And for the amount of water sold, we use either the average of the last 3 years' annual deliveries, or the last 12 months of deliveries, whichever is less. And so when you plug those in, you get basically a cost per acre foot. Once again, this is a simplified example, but what this shows you really is that fully volumetric rate means when deliveries are lower, the pressure on the rate increase is going to be higher. This year, we're going to be using the 3-year annual average number. That's the 42,407 acre feet you see up there. And just note that is 1% less than last year's budgeted deliveries. So that did put additional pressure on the rate increase. Following along with that, because of this fully volumetric rate, a relatively minor or small difference in deliveries can make a pretty significant change. We calculate this year that it's about every 500 acre feet of deliveries is about a 1.3% change in the rate. So Sonoma Water, as we do every year, we review the budget. We did take several steps to reduce this budget. We looked at both O&M and capital costs. We started, with the review process with our team to see if we could make cuts, and then we also coordinated with the ad hoc budget subcommittee to do additional reductions. So as you can see here, we did cut about $11 million in non-routine maintenance projects from this year's budget. In addition to that, we cut about $93 million in capital costs that would have hit during this 3-year bond window. And we needed to look at all those because they do affect the debt service rate that would have hit this year's budget. In addition, we were able to use that $21 million in grants, bond proceeds, and fund balance. So that brought the initial rate increase, which was looking something like 40%, down to what you see today, which is 8.68% for Santa Rosa Aqueduct. Once again, just looking at the rates, this shows you the different components of the rate structure. As you can see, Santa Rosa's cost per acre foot is about $1,400 an acre foot. You will see in there that we do have a capital charge. That's a discretionary charge that the water contractors are able to put onto their rate, which acts as a rate stabilization tool and helps build fund balance for the aqueducts for future capital projects. This year, Santa Rosa and Sonoma did elect to keep their rates the same as they were the previous year. Petaluma had been lower, and they did up their rate by $10 this year to help build fund balance for their aqueduct.
Good afternoon, Lynn Rosselli, Sonoma Water. We just wanted to give you a brief example of a Santa Rosa Aqueduct rates over the next 5 years. We've calculated that those rates would be approximately 8.7%. The model itself tries to smooth the rates out, so it's not looking at making the most cuts in any one given year, but taking the full suite of long-range financial plan projects that are capital projects and expanding them out over and determining what rate and what bonding is necessary in order to fund the projects that are listed. It assumes 1% growth in budgeted demands, 5% growth in O&M expenses, and 4% growth in capital costs. And we estimate $114.5 million in financing in fiscal year 28-29. And this is based on deliveries on the Santa Rosa Aqueduct ranging from 16,500 to 17,000. And this is a slide we show every year to just give an example of how we line up with other wholesale water contractors. We're on the far left, and we're the lower of those, but they're not apples to apples comparisons. However, and they're experiencing the same challenges that we are experiencing in terms of, rates and inflation and bids having to be, rejected and everything else. And so this is just to give you an example of what those rates would look like compared. Technical Advisory Committee voted to recommend to the WAC on March 3rd the budget and rates that we've just presented. The Water Advisory Committee will vote on April 7th, and then we take it to our board on April 22nd. And this slide provides the viewers with examples of our videos and information and reports that we have that give examples of, what work we are doing, what maintenance work, what, ensuring safe drinking water, protecting our pipelines and those kinds of things. So we really encourage people to visit these websites and take a look at, because a picture's worth 1,000 words. And with that,
Thank you. So to circle back and touch some more on the expected water budget impacts. So again, Santa Rosa Aqueduct, 8.68% increase, resulting in a total $1.94 million increase to our water purchase budget for next year. And that is incorporating the 1.1% growth assumption consistent with our long-range financial plan. That long-range financial plan being the 10-year financial plan that we have worked with our rate consultant on in developing rates for the next cycle. So again, we had an 11% increase to the wholesale water rates for next year, and that does fully absorb the 8.68% rate increase and the 1.1% growth. As such, no additional fund balance will be needed next year to absorb the rate increase. And as you all know, we're going to City Council with our public hearing in our water and wastewater rate proposals for the next 5 years on April 1st. And if adopted, the wholesale pass-through would be reintroduced beginning in fiscal year 26-27. Next slide, please. In terms of impacts on our customers, no additional impacts for next year. Again, the public hearing to adopt our rates scheduled for April 1st would set rates for fiscal years 2025-26 through 29-30, including the wholesale pass-through. Again, the proposed increase for next year is fully absorbed by our financial modeling, requiring no excess usage of undesignated fund balance. And the best news, in my opinion, is because our financial plan has provision for the full amount of the water purchase budget as proposed. We are planning to return to our full CIP investment and appropriate $15.5 million for the water enterprise CIP program for next year. Great news, because if you recall last year, because of the unexpectedly high increase on this rate, due in part to the increase, not only because of Sonoma Water, so excuse me, but we did cut the CIP appropriations for 24-25 by approximately $5 million in order to budget or balance our budget rather for the water enterprise. And with that, it is recommended by Santa Rosa Water that the Board of Public Utilities consider Sonoma Water's proposed fiscal year 25-26 water transmission system budget and rate increase, and by motion, make a recommendation to the City Council regarding the Council's direction to its Water Advisory Committee or WAC representative for the April 7th, 2025 WAC vote on Sonoma Water's proposed 25-26 water transmission system budget and rate increase. And more than happy to take any questions.
Thanks to all three of you for your presentation. We'll open up for board member questions and comments. Board member DeWitt.
Yes, thank you for the presentation also. I'm curious about a couple of things because at a recent Santa Rosa City Council meeting, Councilmember McDonald was quite concerned about these rate increases when telling the users of the system to conserve water. And the paradigm that we use is the less water, the more the costs. And I understand it, but by the same token, what was just mentioned by Mr. Harvey, the idea about we put off capital improvement repairs. And the capital improvement repairs are what then become more costly. So you have a Todd Road well discharge connection to be repaired in the future, it looks like. Someone from that general area got in touch with me and said, hey, I believe some of these places leak. So if you have a leak, do you repair it quickly or do you just wait and let water leak? I'm curious because the person didn't give me specifics. He just said he believes there's a leak in the aqueduct system out in that general area. Could you clarify how that gets handled? Thank you.
Typically, we fix leaks when we find them, and we work on that through our operations and maintenance team. I mean, there could be a possibility where we were not able to find the material supplies because of supply chain issues, so we weren't able to, jump on the project as quickly as we had wanted in a case maybe. But in general, we respond immediately.
And I would just add, if that hasn't been reported to us yet officially, please have that resident let us know.
With that in mind, are you aware of any current leaks anywhere in the system?
No.
Thank you kindly.
Other board member questions or comments? Board Member Mullen.
Thank you. City staff, really great job with this to bring it back where ratepayers can see what we're trying to do to manipulate the rates instead of just saying, okay, it's a straight pass through and getting creative with that. So congratulations for that effort. And then secondly, I really appreciate the presentation with the Sonoma Water staff. I've listened to that presentation over a lot of years, and this one is by far the most easily to follow type of presentation to see what comes out in the other end in the form of rates and increases and so forth. So I only had a couple of questions, so I appreciate your efforts with that. The water agencies, and I know Sonoma Water, you touched on it about the impact of water supply issues, whether it's Potter Valley, whether it's drought, whether it's all of the above. And so water agencies are around the state and around the country are always chasing that. My question is, the rates, I didn't see it in the various categories. Under perhaps water conservation, do you have an amount of money that is embedded in the rates and then increases over time and maintain a certain level for, say, droughts, instead of coming back to the ratepayers in the middle of a year because there's a drought and saying, we need an emergency rate increase of 11% because supply is short? We all recognize you have fixed costs and those don't go away when water dries up. But does the rate structure that the Sonoma Water uses have an embedded amount in there to fund that sort of situation? Because it's sort of counterintuitive when you say, we need you to cut back your water supply or your water usage, and everybody does it because you've convinced them that there's a crisis. And the reward they get is an increase in the rates. And whereas if it's embedded in the rates, it's already in there and you can draw on that during a drought, which comes every decade now, we know that, and then it gets replenished over time because it's part of the rate structure. So it's sort of a long-winded question, but I'm just curious if Sonoma Water does that.
Yeah, Sonoma Water, the budget and rates are governed by the restructured agreement for water supply that's signed by the 8 water contractors, and it does not have a provision in it for rate stabilization. However, we use fund balance and we use the aqueduct capital charge as rate stabilization tools. But we set the rate at the beginning of the year. We are not able to adjust the rate throughout the entire year, and we come back, and the restructured agreement for water supply also requires that we develop the rate annually. So we don't have an opportunity to put in drought surcharges or any other rate mechanism that would be helpful given the constraints of the restructured agreement.
Yeah, I mean, we do keep a reserve in the operating account, and we also have a prudent reserve that we have, for situations like this. The hard part with that is, as you said, we conserve more and then the rates go, then the revenue goes down, and we do always have to make sure that we maintain our bond covenants and our debt ratios and stuff with the existing bonds that we have. So the way that that's set up is we may have the money to pay something, but if we spend it all, we may actually be out of compliance with some of our bond funding. So there's some limitations to what that reserve can do in a situation like that.
And during droughts, it's tricky, obviously. The messaging is very difficult for customers to understand. They conserve water and then they end up paying more. But there is no real good, response. But we are able to defer, delay large capacity, very expensive projects during droughts and those and times when we don't need that extra water. And those are very extremely expensive projects. So we're able to defer those during a drought, and that helps to keep the rate and the budget more in line.
Okay, thank you.
Board Member DeWitt.
Yes, this is a question, I believe, for Mr. Harvey. I didn't see in there where Santa Rosa folks had a specific amount of increase that they'll be facing year by year, other than a percent. Could you give like a little idea on an average water users increase per year? Thank you.
So for that information, Board Member DeWitt, I would refer you back to the study session we held on the proposed rates. We did, as part of that presentation, show the bill impacts for the average household, which I believe at the moment is household size of 4, a water cap of 4,500 gallons and 7,000 gallons of usage per month. But I would refer you back to that presentation for that.
I'm glad for that reference. I'm asking for you to put it into this public hearing now, what you think a typical ratepayer is going to actually have to pay increased per year. Thank you, sir.
This is a report item, so I can't speak to a public hearing, but you know, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head. I'm not comfortable stating such. I don't know if Mr. Cooper, Director Burke want to comment on that, but I certainly can't today.
I know when it comes to the council, they'll be asking that basic question, so the sooner we have that, the better. Thank you.
Member Wright?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation, and I must say I'm happy. I'd forgotten that we will not have a pass-through, so that's good. We don't have to test that this year. I'm very happy about that. Couple of questions. First of all, was the TAC vote unanimous?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. And then I'm just, a couple of things I'm curious about. Does Sonoma Water now actually house a asset management team? Did you track all your valves and pipes and all that kind of stuff? Do you actually have people with computer programs and so forth doing that now?
Yes, we've invested in a software program and hired a consultant to configure the program to track our assets. I mean, we've of course tracked assets all along, and in the accounting system, we track assets and we check on those annually. You know, we have to go through an inventory analysis on an annual basis for the purposes of our audited financials. But we do have some dedicated staff who are assigned to working on the, a project manager, and others working on the asset management program and working on providing the consultant with the information that they need to configure the system so that.
That's good, yeah. No. And likewise, we have one here as well. I mean, it's kind of the way it goes these days. And also on your capital projects, and to a certain extent on your capital projects in your O&M budget, how do you budget those? Do you just put the entire budget of the project in there? Do you spread it over multiple years? What is, I've never seen that laid out. So I'm just curious how you do that.
So the long-range financial plan lays out all of our large non-routine O&M maintenance projects as well as all capital projects, and it's done by fiscal year. So for every fiscal year, we program out the cost to design, do environmental review, right away, all of that work, and construct and inspect the construction work and get the assets up and running. And we track that in our long-range financial plan.
But we also do, the construction award, we need to have the funds on hand at the time of award.
When you award, yeah.
And a lot of these projects have very large construction costs, so that does have to be accounted for.
So my example would be on year 1, you would have design. On year 2, you'd have right-of-way acquisition. Year 3, it'd be construction or something
we generally
like that.
try to phase the projects if we can.
And then that's the way you fund them.
Yes.
Okay. That's my question. Thank you.
Other board member questions or comments? Vice Chair Arnone?
I want to join in thanking you for the presentation. I was maybe a little too vocal last year about the presentation, and this is dramatically different, and I feel like we've been listened to. I appreciate that very much, especially hearing about the long-range planning efforts that are also going on for even longer periods of time. So this one was easy to digest, and I just wanted to thank you for providing additional information that makes it much easier to act on this year. Thank you.
Thank you. I would echo those comments. Board Member Badenford?
Echoing those comments as well. I was here the last couple of years, and that was the added specificity in data, very helpful. I appreciate it. And also the Santa Rosa context, as always. Hopefully a quick one. The 20-year comprehensive water master plan that's underway. When does that due out, and does it have a potential to make an impact on the long-range financial plan and your predictions of future rates? And when will we kind of be able to see more of that?
So I believe that plan is probably a 5-year plan. It's not a 1-year, study and done. It will have an impact on the long-range financial plan. It will certainly build out our capital improvement program and schedule and prioritize in a better way all of our capital projects. We anticipate, or our engineers, Director of Engineering is anticipating that it will increase our capital improvement plan costs over the longer term. We hope to start building that into the rate structure as soon as the plan has identified the information that's needed to actually plug into the model to determine the rates.
So potentially around the same time that this chart ends. Possibly.
Yeah, well, the model relies heavily too on water deliveries, right? So,
certainly.
If water deliveries go up, it has a very big buffering effect on rate increases. But if water deliveries stay flat and you have an increase in the capital costs, yes, your rates are going to go up.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. That's clear.
Other board member questions or comments? Not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that the Board of Public Utilities recommend to the City Council to advise its representative on the WAC to vote in favor of the proposed budget by Sonoma Water.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Arnone, seconded by Board Member Wright. We'll now open it up for public comment on item 10.3. If you wish to make a comment, please move to the podium. Seeing no one, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Board Member Wright?
Aye.
Board Member Mullen?
Aye.
Board Member DeWitt?
No.
Board Member Bartholow is absent. Board Member Badenfort?
Aye.
Vice Chair Arnone?
Aye.
And Chair Galvin.
Aye.
And that motion passes with Board Member DeWitt voting no and Board Member Bartholow absent.
Very good. Thank you again for the presentation.
Thank you.
Item number 11 on our agenda is public comments on non-agenda matters. If you wish to make a public comment, please move to the podium. Seeing none. We have no referrals. We have no written communications. Do we have any subcommittee reports? Okay. Any board member reports? All right.
I'd like to inform the board I'll not be able to be at the Water Conservation Subcommittee meeting, and also will be absent at another upcoming meeting due to prior commitments made before I took on the responsibility of being on the board. Thank you.
So are you saying you won't be at our next full board meeting?
Yes, sir, I will not be there. I've informed the clerk.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. We'll take public comment now on the board member report. If you wish to make a public comment, please move to the podium. Very good. That'll take care of board member reports. Director's report.
Thank you, Chair Galvin and members of the board. 2 quick items to report to you all. First, I'm going to pass, if you wouldn't mind passing these down. I wanted to let the board know that we have launched a new recognition program for our employees in the water department. We are calling it our Splash Maker program. And it's designed to recognize those in the department that are making a difference or making a splash. This can include innovative ideas, exceptional teamwork, outstanding leadership, unwavering dedication, or extraordinary customer service. It's really a program that we've designed for employees to nominate others. And our goal is to select a winner every month and then we will recognize those winners with a small appreciation gift, as well as we will recognize them at our quarterly meetings that we have, department-wide quarterly meetings, and they'll be highlighted in our What's on Tap newsletter. So for example, our very first Splash Maker winner was Spencer Jeevis, who's a senior utility system operator in the region, or in the local operations section, and he was able to come up with an innovative idea for reducing fats, oils, and grease buildup in our wet wells. That basically saved us, we estimate, about $40,000 a year going forward. So these are just as an example. We're very excited about launching this program. It's taken us a little while to get it up and running, and I look forward to the board members seeing updates on the Splash Makers every month in your What's on Tap newsletter. Second, I wanted to let the board know that we are going to be once again participating in the Rose Parade. We will have a float. We're very excited about it. The Rose Parade will be on May 17th, and the city is a sponsor. The theme for this year is Growing Together, and we are anticipating using, again, a Vector truck and a dump truck to be able to participate in the float. And if you are interested in participating, we'd love to have board members participate and walk with us. We're also going to again invite families to participate. So if you have family members that you would like to walk with us, we anticipate handing out candy. And this year we believe we're going to do water branded seed packets. So we won't be taking any risk with water drops that we'd be tossing into the crowd. So we had a great time last year. It was a lot of fun. Big thank you to our board chair who participated with his granddaughter, as well as board member Grable who participated with his daughter. And if you're interested in participating, please let myself or Secretary Montoya know, and we will happily get you all the details, and we'd love to see you there. And that is my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I would definitely encourage the board members to participate if you can. My granddaughter and I had a wonderful time. She was handing out candy, and she just had a blast. So any other questions or comments for the chair or the director? Yes, Board Member DeWitt.
Yes, this is a very nice program, the Splash. And Spencer Splash Maker, that's what I'll be calling him from now on. He's the first. With that in mind, is there an opportunity in which they could actually get a financial incentive for how much money they save? I know in some other governments, when a larger amount of money is saved, the employee gets some sort of a financial reward too. I think that could actually help to, what's that term, incentivize some folks to say, man, I'm going to try to save even bigger amounts of money. Have we ever thought of that?
That's a great question. I'm happy to bring that feedback to our Human Resources Department. At this point, there's no opportunity in the employment contracts that we do have. I do personally purchase gifts that come out of my personal finances and provide them to the employees. So I do that to try and appreciate them as well as part of this program.
And I appreciate that you do that to appreciate them. That is above and beyond the call of duty. So thank you. Push the idea forward, especially if somebody could save us $100,000 and they could get a portion of that. That would be significant. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other board member questions or comments for the director? All right, we'll open up for public comment on item number 16. If you wish to make a public comment, please move to the podium. Seeing none, thank you for the report. And that concludes our agenda for today, so we are adjourned.